All right. First off, audio test. To anybody tuning in right now, I have to do a video about Toy Lane Kelly and Suge Knight. I've gotten off the phone with, I can't say who, but is close to Toy Lane Kelly. So I need to record this audio, and I'm having issues. So the best way for me to do it is live stream, but I got to check and make sure that my audio is coming through clear on a live stream before I fucking go to record anything. So I see a lot of people in here. I'm just letting you know this. I'm just recording something. I'm having issues with my drivers, and for some reason I can't record anything unless I use my phone or a live stream. But I'm checking right now. There it is. All right, so what's happening? Okay, so I guess I'll shout out to you guys. I gotta do a piece about Suge Knight. I gotta do a piece about Toy Lane Kelly because there's a lot of things going on here that I think that people are either blind to or they don't care enough about it. And I think the reason that this needs to be said is because what's going on with Suge Knight sets a very dangerous legal precedent or precedent when it comes to us. All right, so what up, JM Kazi? What up, Clayton? RJ's not gonna be here tonight. He's a peanuts. Tori, what's up? Valentine Outlaw. Venom Lives. Dominique, hey. Just kidding. Valentine Outlaw. John, Daphne Arnold, Rob Redmond. If you guys want to chat while I'm doing this, that's fine. I thought about setting this to private. You let me know, but I'm gonna read some articles and I'm going to do a recording about it, and that's really all this is. Shannon Johnson, for fucking love of Christ, do not come on here with racial slurs. I swear to God that you guys do this so you can put it up in a video. It's just getting fucking ridiculous. It's getting ridiculous with you guys. Not all of you, but some of you. Anyway, as everybody already knows by now, the movie, as everybody knows by now, the story kind of broke on Friday. Friday is a slow news day. So this kind of blew up over the weekend, but with the Super Bowl and everything, I've kind of put off doing the video because I can't compete with the Super Bowl, although I didn't watch it. Okay, so everybody has heard by now that Suge Knight's fiance, Toy Lane Kelly, was just sentenced to 3 years for a probation violation tied to Suge Knight's case. Now, I had a report in December after Toy Lane Kelly's dad had passed away and she went to a funeral that she was rearrested. Reggie Wright also told me that. I kept that news on the low because I knew that she was going to appear before a court and I did not want to say anything regarding it. But basically what's going on here is an earlier case linked... Shit, I can't even talk today. What's going on here is an earlier case that was linked to the selling of the Tams incident footage of Suge Knight in his truck with the death of Terry Carter. That footage was sold to TMZ. Now, as the district attorney's case kept getting weaker and weaker, they started throwing charges on top of Suge. They knew that Suge had a reasonable defense for the Tams case. And that reasonable defense would be self-defense. So what they did is they went after Toy Lane Kelly for that video. Now, I have it on good merit, and this is just speculation. I don't know if this will end up in the final video. That David Kenner was the one who wanted the Tams footage out there to put the evidence out there so the public could see it. Try to, basically try the case in the court of public opinion. So they went after Toylan Kelly, and here's the... Sorry, my kids are interrupting. All right. See, guys, this is not going to be very entertaining except for your chat, because I'm just trying to record right now, and it's a clusterfuck. So, as they found out that the case with Suge Knight's murder, or a... Jesus fucking Christ. So as the prosecution, LA County prosecution, started to see their case crumble in front of them, we had Sloan say that he would not testify against Suge. We have video evidence that came out via TMZ that showed them picking a gun up off the assailant. Suge Knight has said repeatedly, or I've heard word through Suge Knight, that they were, that Bone Sloan, or whatever, C-Bone Sloan, was actually reaching in his truck to pull the keys out. And that is called a forcible felony. Now, in a situation of a forcible felony, carjacking being the forcible felony, you have the right, under the law, to defend yourself with lethal force. Suge Knight defended himself with lethal force. And I think the closer to the trial date, which has been put off for about 2.5 years now, but the closer to the trial date, the more that the prosecution realizes that their case is a very weak one at best. So what they did is they went after Toylan Kelly initially last year for selling the footage of the Tams incident to TMZ. Now what they did when this happened is they issued a search warrant for her phone and her home. Now this sounds like common practice, but what that actually does is Toylan Kelly was very instrumental in Suge Knight's defense. So when they issue a search warrant for Toylan Kelly's phone and they issue a search warrant for Toylan Kelly's house, it's called incidental collection. They happen to collect evidence from her phone and evidence of the defense via the search warrant. So when they arrest Toylan Kelly for the TMZ video, they serve a search warrant and they get most of Suge Knight's defense because they got her phone and they searched her house. Now this is the first step in LA County really trying to bury Suge. And I've said for a very, very long time, there is a reason that they are doing this, and that reason is that Suge Knight knows where all the bodies are buried. Suge Knight employed off-duty cops, this is a fact, and some of those same cops today are lieutenants and colonels. These are top brass. Now these being top brass, Suge's a very dangerous person. So the prosecutors are watching their case dissolve when it comes to Terry Carter and Suge Knight. So they go after Toylan Kelly for the TMZ cell, and they execute a search warrant on her home and her phone. In the process of doing so, they incidentally collect information related to Suge Knight's defense. So they charge Toylan Kelly. They hold her on, I believe it was $1 million bail. She finally made a plea agreement later. She finally made a plea agreement later last year. And what that agreement was 5 years probation, no contact with Suge. Well, come to find out, when Suge Knight made the death row phone... Come to find out when Suge Knight did the recording for the Death Row Chronicles and they aired that teaser, it allowed the court to once again serve search warrants on producers of Death Row Chronicles, Toylan Kelly, and the attorneys involved in Suge's case. So they rearrest Toylan Kelly on a probation violation. And Toylan Kelly does not have a clean record, but it's not, you know, a horrible record whatsoever. But so just months after Toylan Kelly strikes a plea deal to avoid, you know, prison, she's rearrested, and she was sentenced last Friday to 3 years in jail for the probation violation. Now the question here is, or the statement is, that apparently none of the prosecution want Suge to have any outside help. It's very apparent by the arresting of Toylan Kelly, because Toylan Kelly, being Suge Knight's fiance, is his outside communication. And what I've been told by a personal source was the communication that Toylan Kelly was having after the fact, after her probation sentence, was to get Suge another attorney. Now, notice that on the 27th of January, both of his attorneys, Matthew Fletcher and Thaddeus Culpepper, were arrested for allegedly trying to bribe witnesses in the murder case. And they were charged with acting as accessories after the fact, which is a felony. So it's notable to say that in the 2.5 years that Suge Knight has been in jail, they have denied him common rights that we would all have in the same circumstances. You have the right to confront witnesses. You have the right to hire an attorney. You have the right to consult with an attorney. You have a right to hire your own personal investigators for your case. They denied Suge all these rights. And as their case grew weaker and weaker with Suge Knight on the Tams incident, they started going after the people close to Suge Knight, mainly Toylan Kelly. Now, once they served the initial search warrant on Toylan Kelly that brought these charges, they incidentally collected information from her phone and house that had to do with Suge Knight's defense. Now, yes, they served the search warrant on Toylan Kelly to see if she sold the Tams footage, but incidentally, when you serve a search warrant on someone's phone, you get all their information. So whatever communications that Suge was having via an attorney through Toylan Kelly, LA County prosecutors are now aware of. Now, I've been told that Suge Knight was using other inmates' personal PIN numbers to make private calls, and that's how he called Death Row Chronicles. They've also put a snitch into a adjoining cell of Suge Knight's to try to gather more information on Suge Knight's case. That kind of backfired in their face a little bit. But if you look at it from this point of view, they're denying Suge visitation with his own family. They've denied Suge visitation with his own fiance and child. They've denied Suge right to his attorney, right to an investigator, and they have denied Suge any and all communications with anybody other than one attorney at a time. Now, usually in cases like this, and we have multiple cases against Suge Knight, we have the Tams incident, we have the robbery incident with Cat Williams that Cat Williams already pled out to. We have the threatening of F. Gary Gray incident. And now we have the incident concerning his attorneys and Toylan Kelly. Now, Los Angeles County would have you believe that Suge Knight is this big, bad John Gotti. Now, if anybody, I know there's a lot of people out there that don't support Suge Knight. I want to ask you a question. What is the difference between Suge Knight and Tommy Mottola? They both produce music. They're both head honchos. Suge Knight has never been convicted of any murder. Suge Knight has not been under investigation for any murder. But yet Suge Knight is being treated like he's John Gotti. Notice the same treatment is not given to other music executives. And like a source told me previously, Puffy had better be on his tiptoes, because it looks like the statement that the Los Angeles Police Department and Los Angeles County in general is making is if they want to shut you down, if they want to put you down and they want to put you in prison, they absolutely will. Now, the reason that I'm doing this video is to point out that there's many cases here of the prosecutors initially charging him with a crime, having their case fall apart in front of them, but tapping more cases and throwing more charges against Suge so he's underwater. Because it's one thing to be able to have a good defense on the Tams case, which was self-defense. But when your defense is thwarted by search warrants for Toy Lynn Kelly's phone, who was in contact with his attorneys, and search warrants on his attorney's phone, that means that they're violating Suge's right to private counsel. Now, LA County does not have the right to listen in on Suge Knight's conversations with his attorney. If Suge Knight is making phone calls via his attorney, LA County has no right to listen to those. They are violating his civil rights. Now, a lot of people are going to say, well, who cares? It's Suge Knight. The problem is the precedent that it sets. If they can do this to Suge Knight, then in 3 years when it's someone else, if it's a Russell Simmons or it's a Tommy Mottola or it's a Sean Puffy Combs, they're going to use this case as a legal precedent in order to do this to other people. And that's why you should care. Now, with the Me Too movement and events like that that are happening, you know, there's a lot of people that are friendly with Suge Knight that are not going to stand up publicly for Suge Knight. Because, I mean, he has a checkered past, a history with women, just like Dr. Dre. So he's not getting a lot of public support. You don't hear Al Sharpton talking about Suge Knight. And there is a reason for this. The media has painted Suge Knight to be a big bad wolf or a bad guy. And that's what they want you to believe. But if you go back to the crimes that Suge Knight has actually been convicted of, he's nowhere near close to the John Gotti type of personality that they're making him out to be. Now, one would ask themselves, why would the court do this? Why would the court go so far out of their way to silence Suge Knight? And I have an opinion on that. It's one thing if you are a free person and you're on the streets and you make a statement. Your statement is taken as somewhat credible. But if you've been convicted of multiple felonies and you're sitting in jail and you make a statement, most of the public are not going to believe that your statement is credible. Because just like Greg Kading does, he'll say, well, you know, it's a jailhouse informant. So as long as they can keep the term jailhouse informant on Suge Knight, the longer they can suppress what he has to say and make it less credible in a public forum. And there's another angle to this. The prosecutors, defense attorneys, including people like Thaddeus Culpepper, whose nickname was the Groupie, they stand a lot to gain just by being involved in this trial. Think of it like the OJ case. If the prosecutors on the Suge Knight case are successful in putting Suge Knight, the most notorious record label owner, in prison, here comes their book deals, here comes their fame. So everybody from the prosecution to the judge to the court reporter down to his defense team stand to gain from Suge Knight whether he wins or loses. If he wins, they stand to gain their 15 minutes of fame. If he loses, they stand to gain their 15 minutes of fame. Now I want to address Thaddeus Culpepper. Thaddeus Culpepper's nickname was the Groupie. Because what Thaddeus Culpepper would like to do is talk to multiple media outlets. He was breaking, in my opinion, he was breaking attorney-client privilege by doing so. He was talking to Jesse at Controversy Radio. He was talking to Russell Poole and Michael Carlin. He was making statements for his client without his client being present or maybe even aware of some of these statements. So, when it comes to Thaddeus Culpepper or Matthew Fletcher, we don't know if those statements were being made on behalf of Suge Knight or not. We just know that they were charged with accessory to murder after the fact. So what I think everybody needs to keep in mind is if they can do this to a Suge Knight, they can do this to anybody. And I want to really look at Suge Knight's criminal history. He is a 2-time felon. So they've leveled several felonies on top of Suge. If he gets one more felony, he's going away for life. So Suge Knight right now is fighting for his life. And LA County court system is doing everything it can to impede his defense. I think it's fair by seeing the TAMS footage that Suge Knight has a reasonable self-defense claim. Terry Carter was his friend. Notice Cat Williams, who's been arrested multiple times. He settled his robbery case when it came to the paparazzi taking pictures of him and Suge Knight's son was actually taking a leak in an alley. And that's why Suge Knight and Cat Williams attacked the reporter and allegedly took their camera. Suge Knight's already pled out to that, and he didn't even get jail time for that. Suge, on the other hand, those charges are still pending. So you have the prosecution that know that the Tams footage of the Terry Carter incident, the Tams footage of the Terry Carter incident, Suge Knight has a reasonable defense. So once the prosecution realizes that, then they started going after media outlets. You'll notice TMZ, they posted the Tams footage. I've been told that the attorneys wanted that out there so the public could see it. Did they prosecute TMZ? No. They prosecuted Toy Lynn Kelly for selling them that footage, which was a part of a deal that she made, allegedly, with TMZ to sell the footage. But notice they didn't go after TMZ. They only went after Toy Lynn Kelly. Now, when it comes to the Death Row Chronicles and Suge Knight breaking a no contact order by speaking publicly on the Death Row Chronicles, they did serve a search warrant for producers of the Death Row Chronicles phones. But notice, those people are not standing in court. It's Toy Lynn Kelly that got 3 years. And now it's Suge Knight's attorneys that he was very limited in speaking with are both facing felonies. So the weaker that the Tams case got, the more charges they tried to retroactively add against Suge. F. Gary Gray was not even a story until the middle of last year. And then all of a sudden, well, okay, the case is breaking down with the death of Terry Carter, so we're going to hit you with threatening F. Gary Gray. And we're going to go after your fiance for selling this footage. And then we're going to go after your lawyers for coercion or threatening witnesses, when it is a lawyer's job to reach out to witnesses, even if they're witnesses for the prosecution, to try to see if they're going to cooperate or not. I think that this is a complete travesty of justice. And the reason that I want to bring public attention to it is because if we let this happen without saying anything, 5 years down the road, it could be you sitting in the same position. It could be me sitting in the same position. If I speak out against the LAPD and they find a charge on me, they can limit all my contact, limit my right to an investigator, limit my rights to my attorney, take away my support system from the outside, jail them, arrest my attorneys. This is unprecedented. This has never happened in the public forum. But because it's Suge Knight, because they can label him as a big bad wolf, and because with his history, nobody's going to stand up for Suge Knight. Suge Knight is friends with more celebrities than Puff Daddy. He has support out there. But you have other people like Whack 100 coming out saying he's going to bail out Suge, and you had Floyd Mayweather saying he's going to bail out Suge. And what they're doing is they're using Suge Knight as publicity. They're using him as free publicity. Because like I said earlier, when it comes to the prosecutors, when it comes to his defense attorneys, they're all in this for their 15 minutes of fame. It makes no difference to them whether or not Suge Knight is acquitted of all charges or goes to jail for all charges. Because either way, they're going to get their book deals, they're going to get their television deals, and they're going to be able to tell the story of Death Row Records. Now, you have a lot of people on the outside, I brought up Whack 100, that would stand to gain a lot if Suge Knight wasn't free. Because then they can be the public voice of Death Row Records and Death Row history. You see Reggie Wright Jr., he's now the public voice of the Death Row Chronicles, when we all know it should be Suge Knight because it was his record label. So the point of this video is to let the public know that there is an orchestrated plot to strip Suge Knight of his civil rights, to use positions of power, as of being a lawyer or a prosecutor on the case, to their own benefit for their own 15 minutes of fame. And in the meanwhile, innocent bystanders like Toyland Kelly are going to jail for 3 years on a 5-year probation violation. Now, if that was to happen anywhere else outside of LA County, we're talking about a 6-month turnaround, but not for her. And like I said previously as well, the robbery case with the paparazzi that Cat Williams had already settled long ago with no jail time is still hanging over Suge's head. And the reason that they are doing this is because they know that the Tams case is very weak. So ask yourself where the black leaders are. Ask yourself where the Al Sharptons are. Ask yourself where the Ben Crumps are. And one more just for my audio. Ask yourself where the Al Sharptons of the world are. Ask yourself where the Ben Crumps are. What's happening to Suge Knight is setting a dangerous legal precedent, which means once that this happens, when they go to do it to someone else and they cry foul, they can point right back to what happened with Suge Knight and say, yeah, we can do that, and here's why. Here's the legal precedent. What is happening to Suge Knight is unfair. And what is happening to Suge Knight is motivated behind two things. The prosecutors and the defense team want their 15 minutes of fame. And Los Angeles County has a vested interest in keeping Suge imprisoned, in keeping Suge what's the word I'm looking for? The prosecution would rather have Suge Knight in prison so his words carry less weight. I think we can all agree that Suge Knight knows dirt. I think we can all agree that Suge Knight is probably not the best person in the world. I think we can all agree that Suge Knight is also probably not the nicest person in the world. But I think it's funny that months after the One Oak shooting, where he was shot 6 times, and it's alleged that an off-duty LA County Sheriff's Department officer let the shooter in the back door. Less than 6 months after that, he's attacked again. Obviously, they want to silence Suge, and if they can't do it on the streets, they're going to do it in a court of law. And in the process, they're going to violate his civil rights, and they're going to use this case in the future to violate other people's. And it's almost genius, because they know that there's not many people that are going to stand up publicly for Suge Knight because of the way the media has portrayed him. So without any public support from either friends or famous attorneys or civil rights leaders, they can pretty much do whatever they want to Suge Knight. And unfortunately, his son Legend is now without his father and his mother for the next 1.5 years minimum to 3 years. For what? A phone call? Why wasn't TMZ prosecuted for buying the video of the Tams incident when Toyland Kelly was prosecuted for selling it? Why wasn't anyone from the Death Row Chronicles prosecuted for breaking an order, a court order, but yet Toyland Kelly was? These are just questions that I have. And I just wanted to get this recorded on live stream. I don't know how many of you guys are here because I'm looking at documents. Holy shit, there's 136 of you. So what I'm doing, guys, for those listening to me, is this is really the only way I can record my audio at this second. So that audio is going to go into a video called Suge Knight and American Injustice. And no, Suge Knight is not a saint. Suge Knight is not he's not a choir boy. But that shouldn't matter. We have due process of law. And due process dictates that you have the right to an investigator, you have the right to an attorney, you have the right to sit with counsel and speak to counsel, and you have the right to not have your phone calls monitored when you're speaking to your attorneys. And that's exactly what's happening with Suge Knight. Mood music. You think, okay, Suge Knight's got a tough hand, but it's karma. Listen, if you believe in karma, that's fine, but this is not the way karma works. If we don't have faith in our justice system, no matter if it's a Suge Knight, then it's not justice. Look what they're doing to Russell Simmons. Look what they're doing to Bill Cosby. It seems every powerful, and I'm not trying to make this about race, but every powerful black man they're trying to tear down right now. Suge Knight being the easiest target because he's had the most press. Bill Cosby was the most wholesome, black icon of the 80s through the 90s. He was the first person to go out there and show positive representation of a black family unit. And the media has done nothing but smear his name with not unfounded allegations. None of this has been proven. The first and most successful black-owned record label was Death Row Records. And they're taking Suge down a peg now. Now look what they're doing to Russell Simmons. This is conditioning, people. What they're doing is they're conditioning you. It's a form of racism without being overtly racist. Because what they're saying is, no matter how successful you are, no matter how much good or bad that you've done, if you get too big, or you say something we don't like, or you go against the grain, we will put our boot on your neck. That is what's happening here. And all about Asia, you're absolutely correct. With Cosby, it's not about justice. It's about tarnishing his name. It's about putting him down. And I'm seeing an unforgivable pattern here. First it's Cosby, then it's Suge. Sorry, I had to pause there for a second. First it's Cosby, then it's Suge Knight. Now it's Russell Simmons. You see what's happening? I appreciate you, Jay the Man, say, Jesse, my dude, I'm riding with you. Look, I know that this live stream is disconjointed. I know it is. I'm just trying to record audio because I'm doing a piece on Suge Knight. And I'm doing it not because I'm some Suge Knight dick rider. I'm doing it because I believe in the court systems. And we got a lot of people protesting things that are arguable. This is not arguable. Everybody should care about what they're doing to Suge Knight right now. And not because you like Suge Knight. You should care because they're setting a dangerous precedent that means that they could do this to anybody. All I ask for when it comes to Suge Knight is that he has a right to talk to his attorneys without being surveilled. He has a right to prepare his defense without search warrants being executed, which gets all his defense information. and that he deserves a fair trial. He deserves, just like any one of us, if we got arrested, he deserves to be able to talk to his family, talk to his kids, and talk to as many attorneys as he can afford to hire. And hire any investigator he can afford to hire. And the courts are not allowing this. We are the Don. You said you believe in that fluke-ass justice system, bro. Look, I'm not going to say our justice system is not flawed. Okay? But it's the best in the world. We have the best justice system in the world. And if we let this happen, see, this is the thing. This is the conditioning that they're doing. This is the divide and conquer tactic. If we let this happen as a people, as a country, as a whole, if we let this happen, that allows them to do it to anybody. We have to use our voices and stand up and say, you know what, not this time. And no, you know what? I understand that justice has its pros and cons, and it's not blind. I know that. But we have to hold these people to the same standards that they are holding us. If I can't break the law, if I drive down the 405 freeway at 100 miles an hour, I'm going to probably get arrested for dangerous driving or reckless driving. Okay? If a police officer does it, nobody blinks an eye. The law should be equal. When we write laws, when we have laws, it doesn't say, well, yeah, this is illegal except for this person. And what the court is doing to Suge Knight is a travesty. And they are conditioning everybody who doesn't care about a Suge Knight for them to be able to do it again to somebody else in the future. And mark my words when I say this. That if this is allowed to happen, they'll do it again. That's the thing about power. Once you give an inch, they take a mile. Once you let them bar attorneys, bar visitation, bar adequate medical treatment to one person, no matter if you like them or not, that means they can start doing it to other people. And next time it might be a celebrity that you're sympathetic to. So that's why it's most important to stand up to when it's a celebrity that you might not be sympathetic to. Terry Carter was Suge Knight's best friend. He set up that meeting that day. Terry Carter had nothing to do with what happened to Suge Knight. It's unfortunate that Terry Carter was killed in that incident. But there's no way that they can convince a jury in Los Angeles County that Suge Knight intentionally killed his best friend when someone was trying to carjack him with a gun on them. And the prosecution knows this, so they are pulling out every stop they can to throw so many felonies on Suge. F. Gary Gray case, the paparazzi robbery case, to make him plead out. But the problem is that as with Suge being a two-time felon, if he pleads to any one of those felonies, that's life. They are trying to put so much pressure on him that he either takes a deal or cooperates. And they are doing it illegally. And I think that's really the end point of the video that I'm going to make. Toyland Kelly's not a criminal. When has it been criminal to want to help out your fiance when he's fighting for his life? Unless Toyland Kelly's going out there putting guns in people's faces saying you better not testify. How is a phone call illegal? How is trying to get Suge Knight an attorney illegal? Chat room buffoon. I asked that question about what's going to happen with their kids. They are being taken care of. I thought that social services was going to come in with both parents being in jail, but apparently they had it set up to where the family has them. Gary Watson, you're asking what can be done to help. The only answer that I can give you right now, and here's RJ calling, but the only answer I can give you right now is to let your voice be heard. Nobody is talking about it. Nobody's picketing, nobody's protesting, nobody's going to the courthouse. Nobody's being vocal about it on social media. The only people that are being vocal about it are TMZ, who are making money off those stories, the LA Times, who are making money off those stories, and defense attorneys that want to be the next Johnny Cochran. Thaddeus Culpepper's nickname was the Groupie. He was talking to all these media outlets, telling media outlets what they wanted to hear. So when the Suge's trial was over, Thaddeus Culpepper already had an in with the media, so he could work on his own book deal, he could work on his own press, and that's what's happening. You're saying you can't ban people? That's not true. If you go to the dots, it now just says hide user from this channel. So, I mean, look, I appreciate you guys taking time to listen to this. I'm going to call RJ back. Maybe he wants to go live. Maybe I'll do a little live stream with RJ. I don't know what he's got to say. But I got to call him back. And I'm going to make this video called Suge Knight and American Injustice. DJ Nick Estrada, I appreciate that, man. I try to provide you guys with quality content. And I'm not blowing my own horn here. I try to provide you guys with factual content. You know, I'm never going to tell you Tupac's alive in Cuba. We'll just put it that way. I always want to have the documents to back up what I'm saying. And I'm not always right, mind you. And I've said this to Reggie Wright Jr. in private. I'm not always right. I can look at a document and I could read it one way and I could be wrong about it. But one thing I will take credit for is now at least it's being discussed. You have Tim Brennan coming out now. You have Greg Kading coming out now. You have Reggie Wright Jr. talking on multiple platforms. You got Sharifa Knight talking now. That's what we wanted. It's never going to get solved if everybody stays quiet. And maybe we're wrong. Look, I think Reggie Wright Jr. had something to do with the Biggie hit. And I'm pretty sure he had something to do with Tupac. Like I said, I could be wrong, but we're never going to find out unless people start talking about it. If people remain silent, then it allows the theories to grow and continue. But I'm in the process of reaching out to Reggie Wright Jr. now because I want to talk to Reggie Wright Jr. about Tupac. Not about the case, about Tupac. And I want to talk to him about some other stuff that's private, but, you know, I want to talk to him about Suge Knight. But I don't ever want to look what's important here, and that's justice for Tupac. But I can't sit idly at the sidelines and watch what's happening to Suge Knight while I'm screaming justice for Tupac, because there's no justice for Suge. And the only thing that's happened to Suge is the attempts on his life. That night in Vegas was an attempt on his life. The One Oak Club shooting was an attempt on his life. The Tams incident was an attempt on his life. Why are they trying to shut him up? And does it have to do with the off-duty police officers that were working for Death Row Records, watching cocaine being distributed, being lookouts for cocaine distribution? And now some of those cops are still LAPD? Gunsmoke to Dawn, you said you think that Suge's coming home. He's got a hard battle. He's facing what? Four or five felonies? Mike, I've actually reached out to Joel. I'm waiting. Yes, Gunsmoke Don, you're right. And not only was, you know, the One Oak shooting took place, the shooting in 1996 at Vegas, um, the Tams incident, but you're right. He was also even shot at a club in Miami in 2005. How many attempts on this guy's life are going to happen before people start to ask why? Well, because he bullies people? Come on. You guys are smarter than that. Jay the Man Baker, you're right. People want you dead when you start telling secrets. But look, I got to call RJ back. I appreciate you guys watching this. It was just really me recording some points that I wanted to put into a video, and there's really no other way to do it. Yeah, and you're right too. Real Road Killer, right there. Atlanta, when Jake Robles was shot. I mean, if you look at the history of what's going on with this guy, it's pretty apparent that someone wants him dead. And then you look at what the prosecution is doing and the courts in LA County are doing to Suge, and it's almost 100% that if they can't, it's like Suge Knight said, and it's my famous little quote: if they can't take the money away from you, they take you away from the money. And I believe it's the same with the truth. If they can't shut you up publicly, they'll shut you down privately. And I'm thinking about going live tonight. But look, guys, I appreciate it. Let me call RJ Bond back, and I might be live again. Look, thanks for tuning in. I appreciate it, guys. This video should be out in the next day or two. And I've got some interviews lined up. I've been ill. The flu's been going around like crazy. And, you know, I got to finish doing Dwayne Edelsby. I got to finish. Kendrick Wells actually has a segment I haven't put out. Majesty's interview needs finished. Shit, I still got my DPG video to do. I've reached out to Daz, Mixmaster King, Tretch. You know, I'm trying to make this happen. I still got Gene Deal to put out. So, a lot of good stuff on the horizon. I'll see everybody in just a little bit. Thank you for all the support, guys.